Are you sick and tired of using Well of Radiance on your Warlock all the time? Do you want to have a build that gives you healing just by gaining kills and also making enemies explode with your void weapons? Well, in this video, here's how you can be able to do that. But first, if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I post broken Destiny 2 builds on every single character. If you're interested in that, hit that like button and also subscribe to help me beat the YouTube algorithm. Now let's get right into the build. But first, we need to know what buff gives you healing on kills. So the buff is called the Devour. When getting final blows, it restores you to full health and also grants you grenade energy and extends Devour. And here is how you can proc Devour. First, you will need to have this void aspect called Feed the Void. Defeat a target with a void ability to activate Devour. When Devour is active, final blows restore health and extend Devour. And you can also extend the buff of Devour by having this void fragment called Echo of Persistence. There are seasonal mods in this current season that could buff your build, but if you would like to use the seasonal mods, go for it. But if you do not have access to the seasonal mods, don't worry about it. This build is already good as it is. And I also mentioned that you can be able to explode enemies just by using your weapons, and the debuff for that weapon is called volatile. And if you want to know what volatile does, it afflicts targets with unstable void energy and will explode upon taking additional damage. And also, by getting volatile rounds, you can also disrupt anti-barrier champions. And here's how you can be able to proc volatile rounds. You will need to have this void fragment called Echo of Instability. Defeating targets with void grenades grants volatile rounds to your void weapons. And you will need to have void weapons in order for you to proc volatile rounds. So for the first weapon you're going to be using is an exotic void pulse rifle called Collective Obligation. You can be able to get this pulse rifle in the Vow of the Disciple raid. And why I chose this exotic pulse rifle is because of the intrinsic trait called Void Leech. This weapon leeches void debuffs when damaging targets that are suppressed, weakened, or volatile. Once charged, press your reload button to swap firing modes. In this mode, damage from this weapon applies the same void debuffs that were leeched. So for this build, we're going to be proccing volatile rounds. That would give us the ability to activate this perk. And also, here's a cool thing about this pulse rifle. The perk is called Umbral Sustenance. This weapon's magazine is automatically reloaded when you gain Devour, avoid overshield, or become invisible. And again, this build is mostly primarily on getting volatile rounds and Devour. So whenever you get Devour, it reloads this weapon. But let's just say you don't have the Collective Obligation. Here are other weapons that you could use. This is a open world drop, so that means you can get it in legendary engrams or from Banshee. And this void submachine gun is called the Funnel Web. The perks that you would need to go for are Subsistence and Frenzy. And here's another void weapon that you could get. You can get this void submachine gun in the Duality Dungeon, and it's called the Unforgiven. The perks that you will be looking for are Demolitionist and Frenzy. Now let's head to the second void weapon that you're going to be using in this build. And that void weapon is a machine gun called the Commemoration. You can be able to get this weapon in the Deepstone Crypt. And here's all the perks that you should be looking for, starting with Reconstruction and Killing Tally. And again, if you do not have this void machine gun, you can also use this void grenade launcher called the Regnant. You can also be able to get this weapon in the Season of Defiance. And here are the perks that you should be looking for this weapon. First, you would need auto-loading holster and explosive light. But if you want to get a void machine gun like the Commemoration, but you don't want to play that raid, you can also get this void machine gun from the Vault of Glass called Corruptive Measure. The perks that you'll be looking for are Demolitionist and Firefly. And for the kinetic weapon, I'm using a blinding grenade launcher called Pardon Our Dust. You can also be able to get this in the Dares of Eternity activity. And again, the perks that you'll be looking for are disorienting grenades, auto-loading holster, and Vorpal. But if you want to be able to stun unstoppable and overload champions, I do recommend you would use the Riptide. You can also be able to get this Riptide in the Crucible playlist, or the perks that you would need to be looking for are auto-loading holster and chill clip. And I know many people despise playing PvP, so here is another Stasis fusion rifle that can be able to stun unstoppable and overload champions. And this fusion rifle is called the Deliverance. You can get this Deliverance in the Vow of the Disciple raid. And the perks that you'll be looking for are Demolitionist and Chill Clip. And so for mainly the weapons that you will need to be looking for are the perks that have Demolitionist, because this build ties to your grenades. So by having that perk, it would really benefit from this build. And here is how you can be able to proc Devour and Volatile rounds. You will be needing needing to use this void grenade called the Vortex Grenade. You can also be able to weaken targets by using your Vortex Grenade with this void fragment called Echo of Undermining. Your void grenades weaken targets. And here's what weaken does if you do not know what it is. Afflicted combatants have difficulty firing accurately. The target takes increased damage and has their movement speed slowed. And you can also extend the duration of your Vortex Grenade by this fourth and final void fragment called Echo of Remnants. And the super that I would recommend you would use is Nova Bomb Vortex. And here is how you can be able to overcharge your Vortex Grenade. And it's this void aspect called Chaos Accelerant. Hold your grenade button to overcharge your grenade, making it deadlier and more effective. So as what you see here, there are 4 grenades that would benefit from this void aspect, but for us, we're focusing on Vortex Grenade. So what it does is that it increases the size and linger duration of the vortex. And yes, this also stacks with the void fragment called Echo of Remnants. And for the class ability, I would recommend you using Empowering Rift because you are always going to be getting Devour, which also gives you healing by getting kills. So if you would use Empowering Rift, it increases your weapon damage when you're inside of it. You can also get volatile rounds on your void melee, but in my opinion, the void melee is kind of doo-doo, but it's called Pocket Singularity. It pushes enemies away from you, and it also makes them volatile. And if you want to try out the build for yourself, the dim link will also be in the link of the description. I do stream on Twitch. I stream on Twitch at 10 a.m. PST to 12 p.m. PST. And I also do Destiny 2 helps with anything you would like in Destiny 2. For example, raids and dungeons. And if you're into that stuff, join in on the Twitch streams. And here is what you guys have been waiting for: the armor mods. Starting with the helmet. The first one you're going to be using is Heavy Ammo Finder, which increases the drop chance of heavy ammo on kill. And the second armor mod is going to be the best mod for this build, and it's called Ashes to Assets. You gain bonus super energy on grenade kills, and that is going to be your Vortex Grenade, and you're going to be spamming this non-stop. And here is how you can be able to do that. But first, we're going to have to talk about the third armor mod slot, which is called Harmonic Siphon. Rapid Void Weapon Final Blows creates an orb of power. And here is how you can be able to spam your Vortex Grenade. You're first going to be needing to use this exotic gauntlet called Controverse Holds. And here's what it does if you don't know. While you charge your grenade, you're going to proc this perk called Chaotic Exchanger. It grants 20% damage resist when charging the grenade, and once you hit someone with the charged grenade, it procs Chaotic Exchange, granting 2000% additional base grenade regeneration rate for 1.75 seconds. And it is a 4-second cooldown between activations. And also, the charged Vortex Grenade can proc twice if enemies get hit by the initial explosion and the last few ticks. And here's what mods you will need to equip for the Controverse Holds. The first one is, of course, Firepower. Your grenade final blows creates an orb of power. And the second one is Impact Induction. Causing damage with a melee attack reduces your grenade cooldown. And the third one is Momentum Transfer. Causing damage with your grenade reduces your melee cooldown. Now that we're done discussing the exotic gauntlet, let's head to the chest. So for the chest, you're going to be using Charged Up, increasing the maximum number of stacks of armor charge you can carry by 1. So originally, you can be able to hold 3 armor charges in total, but with this mod, you can now hold 4 armor charges. And you can also buff your void weapon damage. We'll get onto that later. The next armor mod is Harmonic Resistance, which ties to your super. So we're using void, so it reduces incoming void damage from combatants. Last but not least for the chest is Arc Resistance, reduces incoming arc damage from combatants. And for the resistance on your chest, you can change these resist mods depending on what activity you're playing. Now that we're done discussing the chest armor, let's head to the leg armor. You remember I was mentioning about weapon damage boost? So here's the mod that does that. And the mod is called Void Weapon Surge. Your void weapons gain a small bonus to damage while you have any armor charges. And the second mod you're going to be using is Invigoration, which reduces the melee cooldown. And the third and final mod for your legs that I would highly recommend you would use is Innervation, because it reduces your Vortex Grenade cooldown whenever you pick up an orb of power. And last but not least, let's head to the Warlock Bond. The first mod you're going to be using is Time Dilation, which extends your void weapon damage boost by 15 seconds. And the second armor mod that you're going to be using is Bomber, reduces grenade cooldown when using your Empowering Rift. And here's another mod that also ties to your Empowering Rift, and it's called Powerful Attraction. Automatically collects nearby orbs of power when you activate your Empowering Rift. And I also have a Discord for people that are looking for some people to play with for Destiny 2, for raids, dungeons, etc. If you guys would like like to join the Discord, it would be in the link of the description. And here's another video that I think you'll enjoy. It is a new Starfire 2.0 build, and if you're interested in wanting to learn more about that, be sure to click on the screen right now. If you'd enjoyed this broken Vortex Grenade Warlock build, be sure to hit that like button and also subscribe. I will greatly appreciate it, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. And if you made it this far into the video, be sure to put pocket socket in the comment section.